So about a year ago, an excavation crew sponsored by Microsoft dug up the famous Atari landfill in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Supposedly, Atari buried millions of ET cartridges there, and the excavation crew wanted to know if that was true. They were also filming a documentary at the same time. Well, I made a video about the whole ordeal, basically saying the excavation was overblown because there's plenty of evidence that tells us exactly what was buried in the landfill back in 1983. And of course, when the excavation crew dug up the contents of the landfill, they found exactly what I thought: a bunch of random Atari parts and games from a warehouse dump. If you'd like to check out that video, I've got a link in the description below. Well, it's been about a year, and the documentary on the excavation entitled Atari Game Over has been released on Netflix. I decided to watch the film for myself and provide some thoughts on it. Now, I will warn you, this video does contain spoilers, so turn back now if you want to experience the film for yourself. Atari Game Over is a documentary suffering from an identity crisis. Half of the movie focuses on the rise and fall of Atari and contains some really insightful interviews from Nolan Bushnell, Howard Scott Warshaw, and Manny Gerard. This is easily the best part of the movie. The rise and fall of Atari is a fascinating story about an entire industry being born. It was so interesting hearing about Howard Scott Warshaw's experiences working at Atari and making ET, as well as the business insight provided by Warner executive Manny Gerard. And then there was the other half of the film, which focuses on uncovering the infamous Atari landfill, which was supposedly full of ET cartridges. However, as I said before, this is all completely false, so watching this part felt pointless, I guess? It's comical in a way. And that's my biggest problem with this movie. Director Zach Penn purposely misleads the viewer and has them believing that Atari did actually bury all of these ET cartridges, and he does it for the sake of entertainment. The film repeatedly gives the viewer false information. They claim Atari denied the whole dumping, which is not true. They even use newspaper clippings in the movie that prove what was actually dumped. And of course, at the end of the movie, they don't find millions of ET cartridges. In fact, ET only made up about 10% of the entire landfill, so the payoff in the end was pretty underwhelming. The truth about the landfill isn't exciting, but being dishonest to the viewer feels irresponsible. According to IGN, there's an interview with an Atari warehouse manager that was completely cut from the movie. Apparently in 30 seconds, he completely debunks the entire premise of this movie. The production values, however, are really good. It's a well-shot film, and it has some really good editing. It keeps you watching and doesn't overstay its welcome, clocking in at 1 hour and 6 minutes. Some of the graphics and transitions they used were kinda corny, but overall it's well done. So in conclusion, Atari Game Over is okay. The segments on Atari and Warshaw are really good, but the rest of the documentary is based on a false mystery. It's an entertaining movie. Don't get me wrong, just don't watch this movie expecting to learn tons of information about the rise and fall of Atari or the video game crash of '83. By the end of the film, you'll really feel bad for Howard Scott Warshaw and the predicament he was in, trying to make a complete game in 5 weeks. You'll also feel like maybe ET isn't the worst game ever made and didn't single-handedly cause the video game crash. I'd say Atari Game Over is worth a look, if only for the segments on Howard Scott Warshaw and Atari. It's available on Netflix, or you can watch it for free on Xbox Live. That's all for this episode of Gaming Historian. Thanks for watching.